I'd like to begin today by offering some friendly life advice to anyone else in college or planning to go to college. If your professor expects a graduate-level 10-page paper and a complimentary 15-slide PowerPoint presentation that he's given you 6 weeks to work on, don't wait until the week before it's due to start on it. Right then, let's talk about Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. So what do we got here? A new DBZ fighting game. This time with characters from Super. So the plot is a couple of characters named Mira and Toa are screwing around with time and... Wait. This is the same fucking plot as the last game. But Mr. Snow, we have these more characters like the Turles and Jinyamba. Oh, you mean characters that had been in previous DBZ fighting games that could have easily been put into Xenoverse 1? But we also have new characters from Super. Oh, you mean like Golden Frieza and shit that was included in Xenoverse 1 by expansion pack? No, Bandai Namco put an extra glowing hair on Vegeta's taint, and now they expect stupid people to pay them another $50. Fuck them and fuck you. Instead, let's talk about Lisa, because it was requested, and maybe if I start taking viewer requests again, people will be more inclined to share my videos and visit my tip jar, thus staving off my crippling depression. I usually find RPGs very difficult games to review, mostly because of the gameplay aspects just hovering around menu options until you click the best ones in the best order. Fortunately, Lisa has added sort of a combo system that allows your characters different powers and the player gets to do more than mindlessly press the select button. At first. As is the case with most games, eventually there comes a point when you discover your best abilities and resort to mindlessly pushing that particular button sequence repeatedly. But at the end of the day, it is still marginally a bit more robust than typical menu scrolling. I'd like to make special mention of items in this game. They're incredibly practical when compared to your typical turn-based RPG. Let's take a minute and just enjoy the multitude of uses empty bottles have. You see a generator, and you get some fire bombs. You see a water pump, and you get some water. You see a pot of food, and you get some soup. And best of abso-fucking-lutely y'all, if you drink the super water, you get the empty bottle back to refill. I know this sounds like an incredibly minor thing, but it adds another layer of depth to itemization. Do you spend your bottles as a projectile and blow them on an enemy for extra damage? Do you use them for healing items and thus get an empty bottle to use again once healed? Has this sort of mechanic been in another RPG before? I'm genuinely asking because it amazes me how I haven't seen it before. Another nifty item is the Joy Pill, and it's going to be real hard to talk about this without going into spoilers, so let's just get it out of the way. Brad is a drug addict. Taking Joy restores your life and skill points, increases your defense to 9 invulnerability, and either gives you permanent crit hits or just doubles your damage or something along those lines. Point is, it's a huge steroid buff for the person taking Joy. Now, the interesting bit is you'll go into withdrawals after a while if you don't keep using Joy. In withdrawal, you have, no offensive capabilities whatsoever. I think if you blow skill points, you can get a little bit of damage, but it isn't much. Don't quote me on this also, but I think you suffer a defense debuff. Now, when withdrawn long enough, the effects go away on their own, and it's back to base stats. What this is doing is giving you more or less a guaranteed victory item for a current enemy threat at the cost of being nerfed heavily at a potentially inconvenient time. So, do you take that risk? The game is a difficult one. As you all know, there is difficult where a game is challenging, and then there is difficult where the game is either cheap or tedious. Unfortunately, this game falls into the latter category. Now, in the game's defense, it has multiple difficulty settings. I started the game in pain difficulty because why not? Battles weren't terribly difficult, and I felt I only really lost when I was in areas I wasn't leveled to handle. No big deal, as that's typical amongst RPGs. The thing I hated about pain mode was the save points blow up after one use. This was just annoying. I know I'm borderline insane here, but I'm not someone who plays games for long periods of time. Even when I leave Final Fantasy XIV on, I have to hop off the computer every hour or so just to stretch it out and, walk around. So when I have save points instead of save states, I tend to use them as I see them. Making save points limited in use was almost forcing me to sit down and have to play longer periods than I'd have liked. But that's just me. Another problem I had was with the map design. It's very repetitive, and maybe again it was just me, easy to get lost in. Prior to getting the bike, Brad moves at a snail's pace as well. It's excruciating in the aforementioned pain difficulty mode. Something else bothering me was the permadeath of companions at certain events. Now, I have no problem with the idea of permadeath and bad things happening to my characters as long as I have a means of playing against it. For example, there came a point where I was forced into a Russian roulette and lost 2 companions based on the RNG in the minigame. There are also campsites you can use to heal your team should the player not have money for an inn. I'm fine with bad things happening to my party as a risk-reward gambit, but I have a problem when my party member gets kidnapped and I have to go out of my way to complete a fetch quest. I found it more efficient to load up a previous save than go through that if a party member I liked got taken. So if the game isn't very challenging, what's the big deal and why am I hearing about it? Characters. With a big, throbbing, veiny, erect capital C. Our main character is Brad Armstrong, and calling him a hero or hell, even a good guy is extremely generous. But he isn't an anti-hero either. No, this is what we used to call a well-thought-out character back in the day before the only personality traits of RPG characters could be summed up by their hair spikes. Really gonna try not to spoil a whole lot here, but Brad feels like someone I might run into in my daily life. He's flawed, he's not perfect, he did a lot of bad things for what he thought were good reasons, and a lot of those bad things echoed bad things his father did to him in his own youth. The development is focused solely around Brad, and this is very much his story we're playing. The other characters get a quick personality quirk and are let go or have some history with Brad, and we're given just enough info on these guys to flesh out Brad some more. Lisa is a very interesting game. I found the gameplay to be mediocre at best, level design boring and repetitive, but god damn I am enthralled with Brad's struggle and that's what kept me playing the game. RPG design, Dingaling may not be anywhere near the best at, but they know how to get me feeling for a character. And I would argue Brad Armstrong alone is enough to keep a player into this game.